Hi, Cardinal community, and welcome back. Welcome to our REDTalk. I hope you all had a great holiday, and thank you for joining us this evening. We have a great show for you today. Two-time alumna Kim Beechner is with us. She is the CEO of Embark Marketing, a San Antonio-based marketing agency. She has taken her love for the food and beverage industry and turned it into a passionate business. Prior to opening her agency, she spent 8 years working in the service industry in every position imaginable. When she wasn't working, she was traveling the world, absorbing cultures and cuisine from around the globe. This experience, combined with her educational background in international business, marketing, and communications, inspired the creative agency's niche. Over the last 11 plus years, Kim has cultivated one of the restaurant industry's premier marketing agencies, providing entrepreneurs, franchises, and chefs an opportunity to grow their concepts in a way that stays true to their intentions. In her spare time, you'll find Kim operating her second company, Rent Giant Games, with her husband Corey and their son Kaz. If she's not working, she's volunteering, running marathons, gardening, or traveling. So I present to you this evening Kim Beechner, who will talk to you about exploring the idea of opening your own business and being an entrepreneur. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. So today, I wanted to talk about marketing your business, and I wanted to gear this discussion towards two types of audience. There are going to be people watching that are maybe startup entrepreneurs who are interested in opening their own business, and then there are going to be people who perhaps already have their business and are trying to learn more how to leverage marketing for their brand. So for our business, Embark Marketing, we focus primarily on the restaurant industry, but the discussion topics and tactics that I'm going to go over today can be translated across any industry, whether you're a digital selling something online brand, or if you have an in-person boutique, restaurant, something where you're trying to get people to come in-house. So let's just hop right in. The first thing I want to talk about is the brainstorming and the research aspect of opening a business. I work with a lot of startup entrepreneurs, and you'd be surprised at how many people forget to do their research. So I came up with a couple of questions to kind of make you think, so that if you are an entrepreneur who is getting ready to start a business, you have a place to start. So the first question that I have for you is, why are you doing this? Why do you want to open this specific business? What is it that you're passionate about? And make sure that this is something that you really can dedicate your time and your effort and your attention to, because consistency is key. Owning a business is very hard. I've owned Embark Marketing for 12 years. I've owned Rent Giant Games for 5, and both of them are very time consuming, and you have to have passion for what you're doing, or you're never going to see the long game results and benefits of owning your own business. So I think identifying what your passion is and do you have the time for it is key. The second thing is the vitality of that business. Is there a market for it? For me personally, when I started my business, I wanted to open a marketing agency, and just like most startup entrepreneurs, I was taking any person that would hire me because I was a startup business and I just needed clients. But as I got 2 or 3 years down the road, I realized that by having anybody as a client, I really wasn't focusing on a niche or something that's unique. We call this a USP, or a unique selling point. What is it that separates you from your competitors? What is it that you want to market and sell? So for me, after 2 or 3 years, I realized that I needed to narrow my niche. And what helped me to do this was actually a professor from Incarnate Word, Dr. Beechner, who helped me to join a capstone and have some of the students help me look at my business plan and determine what I could do to help grow my business in a longer scale game. So if you are a startup entrepreneur, I highly encourage you to reach out to the Alumni Association, talk to the professors. Most students have to do capstone projects, and if you're a startup company, this is a great opportunity to help tackle some of these research questions. Things that you should consider, we already kind of touched on, like, is there a market for your business? For me, there was lots of opportunities to do marketing, but there were very few agencies that specialized in the food and beverage industry. And coming from a service industry background, that was something that I already had a lot of knowledge about. So it helped me to narrow my niche into that specific segmentation, which then created an expert mentality. I focused all my energy on learning about restaurants and bars and how they function and operations and cuisine and food and recipes. And that helped me to project the business quicker and grow it faster because I was an expert in a specific niche. So if you can find your unique selling point, I think that would be great in separating your brand from others. When we're talking about separating your brand from others, you should absolutely research your competition. See what other brands that are like you are doing and try and either gain inspiration, do it, but do it better. Find what's out there and how you fit in that world, and then try and curate your brand around that, around your unique selling point. The other aspect that I feel like startup entrepreneurs forget is all of the effort, labor, and marketing and dollars that go into starting a business. So something that I would highly recommend doing is creating some sort of preliminary budget for your new business. Are you going to require office space, staff? Do you have enough money to invest in marketing when you first open your business? What I find is a lot of, at least in the restaurant industry, people will spend tons of money building out this beautiful space and hiring the best chef, but then they've saved no money to do the marketing. So when we have our grand opening, there aren't any funds to actually get the message out about the new business. So I think that that's something that if you're starting a new company, you really need to evaluate those figures and those expenses before you jump into something without knowing what the risks are at stake. Once you have all of that down, and you know that your brand is viable, you know who your target audience is, you've evaluated your competitors, it's time to start setting up your pricing. And that could be for a product, that could be for online, it could be for service-based if you're a consultant. This also will help if you look at your competitors at their pricing. I will tell you one of the mistakes that I made first starting out is I undercut myself. Because I was a startup and a new entrepreneur, I, of course, was wheeling and dealing, just trying to get clients. But in doing that, sometimes you can undervalue yourself. You worked hard, you got your degree, you're studying, your brand is growing, and you need to price yourself competitively so people will not take advantage of you. So I encourage you to look at your pricing in detail. That's a mistake I feel like I made in the beginning, and it took me a few years to kind of value myself as an entrepreneur and place a value on our services as a business to compete with our major competitors. Once you have all of that done, then it is time to get to work. So the first step would be getting things legal, which means you need to hire a lawyer. Something else to include in your expenses as an entrepreneur startup. I would highly recommend talking to a CPA and a lawyer about how to incorporate your business that best protects you, and understanding the taxes that are going to go on based on your business. This is something also that I feel like some entrepreneurs maybe aren't thinking about it that in depth. One thing I can recommend, or the only thing I can say on that part, again, you should get a lawyer and discuss those in more detail. But for us, we started our company as a LLC, a limited liability corporation. I'm so sorry. And that is important because, Lilu, so sorry, guys. I'm going to hop for 2 seconds. Okay, well, that's what happens when you are live. Things happen. So that is my dog, Lilu. She's very talkative and very friendly, but unexpected, someone's at the door. Okay, so we were last talking about talking to a lawyer, getting your financial situation all together. So that is definitely something that you should consult with a professional on before incorporating your business. Now I want to get into the nitty-gritty of my expertise, which is marketing. As I mentioned previously, we work specifically with food and beverage brands, but I do feel like these tactics are applicable across all industries. So if you are just starting out as a business, one of the biggest mistakes that I see that clients make is that they don't do proper research on the name of their business. For example, I would highly encourage you to look at, are there any other companies on the internet that are utilizing your name? I have some clients that think that their name is so unique and so fun, and then I Google and there's 14 other businesses with that name that we're trying to compete against. Or the social media handles and domains that the client would want are already taken by another company. So before you invest in branding and logos and style guides and all of those creative assets that you need, I think it's important for you to do a little bit of research on the actual name of your company. A great resource for this would be GoDaddy or another hosting service. GoDaddy is my free go-to tool. You can go to GoDaddy.com and type in the name of the business that you want, the domain or URL for the business, and it'll tell you if it's available or not. If it's available, then the next step is to look at all of the social media handles that you would want to utilize. This could be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat even, and see if the handles are available. We highly recommend that all of the handles for your social media match your domain. This is very important for something called search engine optimization. The two things that are important here. One, when we think about the internet as a machine that scans, you type in a keyword, marketing agency San Antonio, and it has to scan millions and millions of websites to find that keyword for you and then propagate a list. You are a user of Google and Google is a business, and they want to show you the best things that you are searching for or the most accurate thing you're searching for that term. So if you have a business and everything matches, all your handles and all your domains, it makes it a lot easier for users to find your brand online, and it helps Google to catalog your brand online. So I would highly recommend looking at your domain, seeing what's available based on your name of your company, and then seeing what's available on social. A little tip that I have for this is if your company is something common, like, plants.com, okay? You're a plant shop. Plants.com is probably taken, but plantssa.com might not be, or SATX. But then you need to start thinking, do I want my business to stay in San Antonio? Do I want to eventually grow throughout the state of Texas? Do I eventually want to go national or international? In which case, if you're planning on expanding in the future, maybe using something like SA isn't as beneficial as TX or as US at the end of the handle, which could allow you another opportunity to get something closer to the domain that you actually want. Once you know that everything is available and matching across the board, then it's time to start thinking about the look and feel of your brand. That is called your branding or your style guide. So if you have graphic design capabilities, I'm gonna give her a bone. Give me just a second. She is a happy lady now. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so once you have your domains, your handles all figured out, then it's time to start thinking about branding. If you have the ability to do graphic design, create your own logo. If you don't, then I highly recommend finding somebody who has some designing skills to develop your logo, because once you have a logo, you're kind of stuck with it unless you decide to do a rebrand later down the line, and that can be expensive. So you want to make sure you pick what you like right up the front. Once you have your logo, typically you want to develop a style guide. These are the specific type of fonts, the specific colors that are all affiliated with your brand, so that you can create some cohesiveness for your brand. I know these are a lot of steps, but it's really important to develop all of this before you even open your business, so that by the time you open your business, you have all the tools in your tool belt to execute appropriately. So once you have your branding kit, you're all set up, you've got your domain, your social handles, you know your logo, your colors, it's time to start thinking about your tone of voice and your tone of voice and your tone and your voice. So that would mean, how do you want to represent your brand? You can do this both in copy, which is textual elements, or from a visual perspective. So prior to any business opening, we always recommend that we develop copy and content. The copy part is really who we are. What is our mission statement? What are we about? What do we provide? What are our services? Who are we as a brand? What are our concepts? What is our culture as a company? And expressing that in words can be really helpful in guiding people who are on your team in directing your business in the way that you want it to be represented. The other aspect is content. So before you can even start marketing your business as far as social media or a website, you have to develop content. If you are, let's say, a digital brand who's selling a product online, this could mean taking pictures of your product, maybe on white, something clear and clean, so that you can show people what they're about to purchase online. If you have a physical business, for instance, a restaurant, then we take pictures of the interior, the exterior, the food, the drinks, the staff, all of those different elements, because in order to market something, people are very visual, and especially today with people's attention span being like 3 seconds long and social media being so consuming, you really want to have engaging content in order to grasp the user's attention. So some tips on creating content. Photography is excellent. You have to have photography. However, if you can afford it and you can implement it appropriately, I highly, highly recommend looking into video. Right now, videos are getting 2 to 3 times more engagement than photos on social media, and they are so much more enticing to watch and view. As we've seen with this explosion of TikTok and Instagram Reels and stories, videos are just far more engaging. So if you have the ability to create video content for your brand, I highly recommend doing so. Outside of photos and videos, you will probably also need graphic elements. These could be flyers. If you're a new business and you're hosting a grand opening, you may want a grand opening flyer, in which case I'm going to recommend that you hop onto the internet and you get Canva. Canva is an excellent graphic design tool. If you don't have any graphic design experience, it has a lot of awesome templates and things that you can use to develop your own content. There's a basic version that's free, so if you're a startup and you don't have a whole lot of money, use Canva free. If you can afford it, upgrade to the Pro, because there's a lot more tools that you can use that are very useful. So up to this point, we've just researched, thought about our brand, looked into our domains, thought about our colors, our logo, creating content. We haven't even started implementing the actual business product process. So if you are a startup or an entrepreneur who does not own a business yet, all the things we've discussed previously are things that you probably want to consider before moving forward and actually executing your business or your brand. If you are already a business that's set up, then everything moving forward from here will definitely be a benefit to you, because I'm going to cover a couple of different areas of marketing and explain how they coexist together. As I mentioned previously, I went to Incarnate Word and I have 2 degrees, one in international business and marketing and one in communications. Something that I noticed and I found very beneficial in having both these degrees is that knowing business and marketing is one element, but understanding communications and how that integrates with marketing is super, super important in executing a very strategic and successful marketing campaign or overall marketing your brand. So there's a couple of different elements that I want to talk about. The main ones are going to be your website, your social media, email marketing, public relations, and advertising. All of these 5 areas work together. You can have them independently, but in my experience over the last decade, I have found that implementing communication methods between all 5 of these areas combined create much better cohesive results for our clients and for even our own brand in general. So let's start with websites. So you finally have your domain, you know what the name of your company is going to be, or maybe you're already owning a company. So when you're looking at websites, there's really 2 different options that you have. There is a WordPress website, and then there's a template-based website. I'm just going to kind of talk about the pros and cons quickly about these 2 different websites in layman's terms so you can understand what you're getting into. In my professional opinion, I feel WordPress is the best thing for your brand because WordPress is an independent system, meaning there's your website brand and there's the internet, and there's no middleman in between. So what you publish on your website can directly appear on Google. We talked a little bit earlier about keywords, things you search on Google to find businesses. This could be AC Company Austin, Marketing Agency San Antonio. If you have those words on your website and people search on Google, then it is likely that your website will appear if it has those matching keywords. So I have found that WordPress websites are the best and quickest way to perform what's called search engine optimization, this connection between the internet and your site brand. The other option, which is much more affordable, especially if you're a startup, is a template-based site. There are tons of them out there like Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, Bento Box. There's tons of them. Even Google has ones now. These are awesome, especially if you don't have the marketing dollars to pay somebody to build a website, because they are drag and drop templates. I want to put a text box here. I want an image here. I want copy here. You can just kind of build the site yourself. They're also not very expensive. I think a Squarespace site costs $150 a year to host it on there. You have to build it yourself, but it's affordable. WordPress is going to run you anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 depending on the capabilities that you need, which might be out of your price range. But if you're looking really long-term for your business and you can afford to do it, I would invest in WordPress. If not, start with the template-based site. See if the concept works. If it does and you're making money in a year or 2, upgrade to a WordPress. When it comes to websites, there are 3 costs affiliated with a website that I think every business person should know and understand. The first is your domain, the www.whatever.com. Okay, there's a price that you have to pay to own that domain, and you have to pay that price every single year to keep it. That's super important because unfortunately I've had clients in the past that didn't pay for the domain and lost it, and then you can't get it back if somebody else has it and you have to start all over. So very important purchase your domain and make sure that you have it on auto renew so you never lose it. The second aspect is hosting. This is what makes your site appear on the internet, and there is an annual cost for this too. Again, GoDaddy is my go-to site for hosting and buying domains. I recommend starting there. The last area of website costs that I feel like a lot of people don't think about is maintenance. If you opt for these bigger brand websites like WordPress, it's not something you can manage yourself. So you have to think about incorporating cost into your expenses to manage that website. If it breaks, if you need content updated, the photo swapped, new copy, a new employee joined, you want them on the staff page, you have to pay somebody to update that. If you go with something template-based like Squarespace, Wix, or Weebly, that's probably something that you can manage on your own, in which case you would eliminate that maintenance fee. So those are just a few little nuances to websites that I thought might be important. The other thing to think about here, we kind of touched on it limitedly, which is SEO, search engine optimization. And I'm not going to go too far into detail on that because it's quite complicated. That would be a whole nother talk. But basically what you need to know about SEO and your brand on the internet are, one, we want to be unique. If you look up Embark marketing, there's not really anybody else called that. So it's likely you're going to find me first. So that's something to think about when you're coming up with your brand name. And two, there are a lot of sites online that your brand could be listed on that perhaps you don't even know about. For instance, for restaurants specifically, Yelp, TripAdvisor, Google, our DoorDash, Uber Eats. These sites will just automatically list a restaurant. The restaurant has no idea that they're listed on these sites, but that site could have misinformation, the wrong hours, the wrong menu, the wrong photos. So it's really important to do kind of an internet audit of your brand periodically to see who has my brand listed on their sites and is that information accurate. If it's not, things like Yelp, Google, TripAdvisor, they all have free profiles that you can claim so that you can control the information about your brand that's on the internet. This is highly recommended for all businesses. Google, Yelp, I feel like those are two of the top user interface platforms that if your information is wrong, unfortunately, it's going to appear everywhere wrong. So you want to claim those and fix those. Especially if you're a physical business, even the Apple iOS system pulls the map information from Yelp. So if your information is wrong on Yelp, it's also wrong on Apple. So there's a lot of monitoring to do online for your brand. So I would highly recommend, again, just doing a little audit periodically, see where your brand is listed, and if you need to update those. The big second part that we're going to talk about is social media. That is where I feel like our agency excels in. It's probably 75% of our business is in social, creating content that's engaging and posting across platforms and trying to gain new followers that turn into sales or in-person customers at our restaurants. So the main platforms, I mean, there are so many social media channels now. The ones that I feel for the restaurant industry that are very beneficial are, of course, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. However, depending on your brand, you may also want to consider YouTube. If you're in something like the wedding industry, you might want to consider Pinterest. All of your different industries may have tendencies towards a certain social platform. So again, look at your competitors, see where they are. That's where you want to be. And ultimately, you want to be on every social media platform that your target market is going to be on. If you don't use Twitter, that doesn't mean you don't need a Twitter. Other people use Twitter. You want to be anywhere and everywhere the consumer is. You should be on every platform so that they can find you. The hard part is keeping up consistently with all of those platforms. So my tip or trick there is that when you're creating content, such as your photos and your videos or your graphic elements, try to create with all social media platforms in mind. What is something that you can build, that you can post on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and update all of your platforms at once? Something that we've kind of been transitioning to is vertical content. If you notice when you're scrolling on your feed for Facebook or Instagram, if the photos are horizontal, they're really small like this, and there's a lot of text on the top or bottom. But if you switch the photo vertical, you're taking up more of the screen. You're creating a larger impact for that audience. You're showing them something beautiful and enticing, whether it be a product or food or whatever it is, and engaging them to want to click and take action on that post. So when you're posting, think about how it translates across all platforms. How is it going to look to the user? And then not just visually, but the copy. Sometimes when we're studying analytics, it's funny because you can see trends of like, oh, that posted well because the content, the photos were so beautiful and perfect. They really like these photos. But other ones, I can tell, but the photo wasn't that great, but the caption was hysterical and people really liked that. So you're trying to find the balance between the caption and the copy and the content itself. For your copy, I would recommend short and sweet. It seems to be the most effective way to post on social media. Longer text posts can work, but then they need to be impactful and meaningful in order to grasp a reader's attention to spend a few minutes reading that post. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, when should I post? How much time should I post? What time should I post? What should I do? What should I talk about? So something for social media that I would recommend is planning both monthly and quarterly what you're doing, even annually. We plan annually. That, I know that's a lot to ask of some people. So if you can only do monthly or quarterly, that's a great start. If you know where you're going in the next 3 months, it's a lot easier to create content and build your social media calendar. So for instance, you know, it's January. We're talking about the first quarter of the year. We've got what? Rodeo, Fiesta, Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day. Are you doing anything for any of these? If you are, create content for those things and plenty of time to market them online. Typically, we recommend 2 to 4 weeks before any kind of promotional campaign, whether that be a grand opening, a product launch, a new menu, whatever it is, so that you have time to develop the content and then get the word out via social media. As far as posting frequencies, when you look up online, a lot of articles still say that you need to post every single day. However, in the last 6 or 8 months, the algorithm has changed drastically. Facebook purchased Instagram, it is now Meta, and things are changing. They're constantly changing. The algorithms are constantly changing. So at this current time, January 2022, what we are finding most successful is posting quality over quantity. We are posting on Instagram about 2 to 3 times per week and making sure that those posts are meaningful, impactful, and engaging. I would rather see 3 really great posts than 7 crappy ones. So something to consider, pumping out information isn't repeatedly, multiple times a day isn't always the best approach. The message is really what you're trying to get across. So 2 to 3 times per week on Instagram. On Facebook and Twitter, you can get away with doing it a little bit more frequently, once per day, maybe twice. We're still sticking to the 2 to 3 times per day unless we have to do some extra promotions, in which case we can throw some extra posts on Facebook and Twitter. As far as content, your photos and videos. Photos for sure. The most engaging posts right now on Instagram are posts that require the user to click or touch. So I would highly recommend using the swipe feature on Instagram, or it's also called carousel. If you're going to utilize videos, using them once a week or twice a month at minimum is a great start. When you build your videos, try to think of something that lasts, the overall concept of your brand, or a product that's going to be around for a while. If you're going to spend the effort and time in building a video, you want it to be a video that's going to last you a little while. Don't make a video on something That's only going to be for one day because you'll spend all that time and effort and then you only get to use the video once. So just a tip on how to save yourself some time and effort. We talked about planning. I think that's it for social. If you guys have comments more specific than that, I'm happy to answer them at the end. The last few areas that I wanted to talk about are themes, again, of our 5 communication tactics that I think some businesses don't think about. One of them is email marketing. So especially if you're selling products online, email is not dead. If someone gives you their email address, you have an intimate connection with them. You're in their inbox. They check their inbox every single day. So if you're starting a new business or you already have a business, I would highly recommend creating some sort of database collection tactic. So for startup businesses who are just experimenting with email marketing, I recommend Mailchimp. Mailchimp is free up to 2,000 contacts, in which case you can set up an account and you can start collecting guest information. An example of this would be, say you are selling a product online, skincare product, and somebody goes to your website and a pop-up happens and says, like, enter your email to get 20% off this product purchase. So you enter your email, that email goes to a database. Now you're collecting those emails. You don't have to do anything with them yet, but in the future, you already know who's interested in your product. So if you have a new line coming out, a new product, you can remarket to those same people who already expressed interest in your brand. The other thing that you can set up is something called automations. Mailchimp allows you, I believe, 3 free automations with less than 2,000 contacts. This could be like, sign up for our email list and get a free this, or get free shipping on your first purchase. You set up the email, the person signs up, it automatically sends. You don't have to click a button every time. This is a great tool that a lot of businesses, I feel like, don't know about and should definitely start implementing. Every new client that we have, I ask, do you have an email marketing strategy? If not, that's cool. Let's just set up Mailchimp so we're starting to collect. That way in the future, if you want to utilize that marketing tactic, you have the ability to do it. Another great resource for emails besides your website could potentially be your point of sale system. So if you're selling products online through Square or Toast or any of these point of sale systems, typically they collect data about your customers, in which case you can pull that data from your point of sale system and import it into Mailchimp. I have noticed in the last few years that a lot of these point of sale systems have email marketing embedded inside of them, in which case you might want to look into that because they have things like reward programs, or let's say somebody puts a product in a cart, then after 48 hours, it will trigger an email saying, hey, you haven't checked out. Did you mean to leave this in your cart? These kinds of triggers and automations help to push the consumer a little bit further to make that purchase, to make that final decision in the marketing funnel to do business with you. So email marketing is definitely something to think about. The other aspect is public relations. This is an area that in the beginning we didn't do a whole lot of, but quickly after the first 2 years, it was like, we have to get on public relations because there is a direct correlation between PR and social media and your website and your brand awareness. What public relations is your relationship with news media outlets. So let's say you're launching a new line or you're having a grand opening for your business. You want to let the media know that you're going to have this grand opening or this new line, in which case you can issue what's called a press release. More than likely, you're going to need an agency or a marketing company to issue this type of release. It's basically a non-bipartisan who, what, when, where, how, from, who, what, when, where, how, why article about your business or the newsworthy topic. If you do not have an agency or a PR company, something that I feel like is great for entrepreneurs or startup businesses to do is to engage with news media people on social media. Follow all the reporters on Instagram, like their content, chat with them, engage with them. If you have something really cool going on, message them. Hey, my company is doing this. I have a new product coming out. Like, I would love to be featured on your show. I would love to be covered. There's no harm in asking. Just don't, overdo it. Don't push. But just make your brand noticeable by these types of people, and potentially you could get a news segment or a spot on a show where you can talk about those things. So that's kind of like a side way of getting in the door with news media outlet contacts if you aren't having the ability to send a press release. The other area of public relations that has grown exponentially in the last few years that I feel like every client that we have is asking about is social media influencers, not just on Facebook, but on TikTok and Instagram. Words of wisdom for influencers. An influencer can have 1 million followers. Something could go viral and they could gain a bunch of followers. They could run a bunch of giveaways and get a bunch of followers. And some people purchase followers. It's against Instagram terms, so I would never advise you to do that. But what you're looking for when creating an influencer partnership is how engaged their audience is. If they have 1 million followers and their posts only get 20 likes, then it doesn't really matter how many followers they have. Those followers aren't engaging with their content. So when you're looking at influencers to partner with, I think it's really important that you vet their social media platforms to see how much people follow, how many people comment, how many people engage, and does it make sense for me to create a partnership with this influencer? Typically with influencers, you're going to find that ones that are macro, meaning they have large followings, are going to require payment. Payment can range anywhere from $100 for a post to $10,000 for a post. It really depends on the influencer, their traction, what they deliver. So you'll have to base that on your budget and pick the influencer that makes the most sense for you. Here in the restaurant industry, there's a handful of foodie influencers that we partner with on a regular basis because that makes sense for our industry. So if you're in the fashion or feminine product business, maybe look for a fashion blogger or somebody who covers those types of topics who would have the same type of audience that would be interested in purchasing something from your brand. The other smaller influencers, which are called micro influencers, these are influencers that maybe don't have as many followers on Instagram, but they still have an engaging community that follows them. Typically with these influencers, you can perhaps ask for a trade. I would like to offer you complimentary products for an honest review on your social media platforms where you tag our brand and we will share it on our platforms and you kind of collaborate back and forth. I find for small businesses and businesses that are just starting out, this is a great way for you to get your name out and not have to invest a whole lot in one of these larger influencers. The very last thing I want to talk about is traditional advertising. I wouldn't write that off. First and foremost, in our agency, I find a lot of value in social media advertising. Over the years, budgets for social media advertising has changed drastically. Previously, $1 per day on an ad running for 30 days, $30 campaign could potentially do something for you. But today, we're finding CPC rates to be a lot higher. It's a lot harder to reach target audiences because there's so many competitors advertising on social media platforms. So if you're going to be advertising online, we're finding that a $300 minimum budget for Facebook and Instagram ads is a minimum. So when you are starting your business, or if you already have a business and you're wondering where you should start, maybe that $300 mark would be a good place to start experimenting. On Facebook and Instagram, you have the ability to create target audiences. So let's say your target audience is men and women between the ages of 35 to 50 that live in Alamo Heights and travel up to a 20-mile radius. You can get very niche there. And that money will go a lot further because you're targeting your audience specifically. Now, you have to be careful with those audience though, because just because somebody, maybe they have Facebook, but they didn't put where they live. So Facebook doesn't know they live in Alamo Heights, in which case you can broaden up your audience and be less niche, because just because they don't engage in that area doesn't mean they're not interested in your product or service. So you kind of have to experiment there with the audiences, but I feel like social media ads are a great place to start and get your feet wet and kind of work with niches. I do have a lot of clients asking about advertising on Tic Tac now. We have experimented with that in the past. However, more recently, TikTok doesn't have an ability to target locally. It's mostly regionally. So if you're going to engage in advertising on TikTok, you have to have a brand that reaches regionally or nationally. Most of the ads we see on TikTok are for products. So if you're selling products online, that's a great place to potentially do some advertising, especially if you have the ability to ship nationwide. So social media is definitely a place where I would experiment first with ads. You're kind of more in control there. You have a smaller budget and you can experiment and get your feet wet. Once you feel comfortable with that, if you want to take it the step further, and you don't have, let's say, those public relation efforts, you can purchase traditional advertising. This can be TV segments, billboards, newspaper, radio ads, digital ads that stream across everything. We've all been there. You looked up this really awesome thing on the internet, and then all of a sudden you're seeing ads for it everywhere you go. This is called pixel marketing. This is something that you can pay an advertising agency to do for you, especially if you're selling an online product. This is not something to just gloss over. It's definitely something you should look into. I don't think traditional media is gone. Most of our newspapers and our television stations have transitioned to digital platforms, in which case there are opportunities to advertise online. It doesn't have to be print. And they have a larger reach. They get a lot of website hits, and that's a great place to be and get brand awareness. So just to kind of recap, we talked about researching and brainstorming. If you're an entrepreneur, where should you start? Once you are all set up and you know what you're doing, you've set on your business concept, then we're looking at engaging our 5 areas of marketing: social media, your website, public relations, email marketing, and then finally your advertising. All of these areas working together, I feel, have the best impact when it comes to marketing your brand. If you do all of that research ahead of time, figuring out the colors and the concept and the language and the tone and the voice, then all the marketing part will run so much more smoothly for you. And that's the biggest mistake that I see happen, is people come and they want us to market, but all of this other stuff was never done. So if you're just starting out, hopefully this is the spark to get you to start doing your research and seeing what's out there and what would work best for your brand. If you're already in business, this is a great opportunity to look back and see, what am I missing? Where can I go from here? What do I need to execute a better marketing strategy moving forward? So at this time, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Kim. You know, I was writing a lot of notes here. I thought if I ever start my second career, I have a lot of great tips to go on. And I do have a communications degree, but I learned so much more tonight. But there are a few questions here that we have from some of our viewers. How do you get clients? Is it networking? What is your approach? And I'm going to combine it with another one that was here. How do you gain the trust of a potential client? So first, how do you get these clients? Networking, I know you talked about social media and other marketing, but what type of networking approach? And then how do you gain their trust?
Okay. So to get new clients, I feel like the best tactic is word of mouth. So doing the networking and getting out there into the community and into your niche. So for instance, for me, restaurant industry, there are organizations like the Texas Restaurant Alliance. There are service industry groups on Facebook. There are restaurant groups on Facebook, and trying to get to know some of the other people in the industry, because every industry, while it may seem big, is small. Everybody will know everybody, and once you get to know somebody, somebody will talk about you to somebody else, and then eventually, you'll find this little following. I do feel like in the beginning, that was the hardest part for me, is where am I going to find clients? And I mentioned that previously, where you're just like, I'll work for anybody who will hire me. Just somebody hire me. But one of the biggest things that I helped in gaining the trust is that once I got a client, I studied their analytics and I documented everything. I created case studies. This is what the client came to me. This is what they wanted me to do. This is the strategy I took. This is the implementation method that I used, and these are the results. Just like at school, you're writing a research paper. It's basically what you're doing with the client. Once you have that case study, then you can go to a new client and say, well, this is the strategy I took with this one, and this is the results that we achieved. So this is what you want to do. This, using a similar strategy or tactic, we can alter it for your brand, and these are the projection of results that I can semi-guarantee you that are going to happen. Of course, with all clients, there has to be a collaboration. More often than not, you will find, or I found, that clients come to me and they have no idea what they want. They're just like, you figure it out. You're the marketing person. In which case, it's a little bit pulling teeth trying to get them to talk to you about what they want. In which case, these same discovery questions that you're asking yourself: who is your target audience? What are you trying to sell? What is your unique selling point? You, as the marketing person, has to figure that out in order to sell the brand to a larger audience. So I think the case studies are great in gaining trust, and feeling confident. I do feel like fake it till you make it. Like, if you can walk in there and be confident and say, like, I know my stuff, and I have a case study to prove it, then more often than not, you're the expert and they're going to trust you. So just ride with your confidence.
Great, thank you. And then this is a question on everybody's mind for across all businesses. How has your business model changed since COVID? I know. Number one question.
Yeah. Our personal business model has, we're lucky because we're in a digital world now. So a lot of our marketing is done online. I am very fortunate that I have amazing employees that have been with me for a long time, that I trust and that know our systems, in which case we fluctuate between virtual and non-virtual, given the wave of COVID. In the restaurant industry specifically, my poor clients have gone through the ringer. I mean, we've been shut down, we've been masked, we've been mandated, we've been quarantined, we've been this, we've been that. And really, I think it comes down to innovation. What can we do in the situation that we're in? And the best example I can give you for this is like restaurants. So many restaurants weren't utilizing online ordering or to-go or catering or setting up the technology in a way that someone could just click a button and get food delivered to their door. Changing and implementing this strategy with restaurants was a game changer. It started creating a whole nother alternate stream of revenue that they could have always had. They just didn't know it, but it helped them to survive. And now that we are somewhat post-pandemic, I guess, endemic, that they see the benefits of both sides. So there's definitely, I don't know how to speak to every industry specifically, but you just kind of got to go with the flow, unfortunately, and research a lot. When COVID first hit, I was looking at restaurants in New York, California, Chicago, what's happening in other states, what are the trends that are going on, and will that filter down to San Antonio and to Texas? And if they are, how can I be ahead of that curve? Learn from everyone else and then implement it and do it better.
Thank you. There's a couple of serious questions, but here's a funny one that came across, and I thought I would just share it with you. You know, you were talking about the different algorithms on social media, and someone said all they have to do is think about jelly beans, and all of a sudden they have jelly bean ads everywhere on their social media.
Yep, I frequently think like the phone is listening. It must know. For Christmas, my employees gave me a air fryer because they all have one. They've been bragging about it all year. The very next day, never posted about it on social media. I'm getting recipes for air fryers. I'm like, how does it know? My phone knows. It just knows. So that it is funky. I feel like there is no truth to the algorithm, and it changes so frequently that even when you try to research, where is it at now? That article is already 3 months old and it's already changed. So the best way to learn the algorithms is to unfortunately be on social media more and watch and see what's happening and study your analytics. What do people like? What don't they like? Ooh, that posted well. They must like that. Let's do more of that and see how it works.
Great. These kind of go together. They're more personal questions. How do you personally define business success? Is it money, influence, flexibility that you have, or is there something else? And is there something you wish you had done differently when you started your business? So, how do you personally define your success? And then, is there something you wish you would have done differently?
So that's a hard one because personally defining success, I think, is unique to each person. And for me, I value who I work with and the people I dedicate my time to. I don't want to work with clients who don't care as much as I care about their brand. I want to work with employees who are happy. I want them to feel satisfied. And I measure our company's success by the human beings we interact with and how they respond to what we're doing. When a client is very happy and likes the campaign we came up with and the analytics are on and sales went up, that is successful to me. When my employees can take a vacation, be happy, come back, still enjoy their job, not hate their job, that's success to me. And I have found that by focusing on those core elements, the money will come. The money just comes. If you are doing right and you are doing it well and you are producing quality work, the money will come. So I don't necessarily measure success by money or by followers or things like that. And that's contrary to business because business is highly competitive when it comes to money. But I feel like if your heart's in the right place, all the other dominoes just fall the way that they're supposed to. And I've kind of lived my business that way. And I found success that way. And so that was my tactic. Some people are more numbers driven, but for me, especially in public relations and marketing, it's all about relationships. And I value those relationships, and success comes from positive relationships. To the second question, as far as what would I have done differently, starting my business, I will tell you that this business I started in my undergrad year at Incarnate Word. I was a senior. The business was primarily built out of necessity for me personally. When I graduated from undergrad was right when we had our economic crisis, and it was really hard to find a job, especially in my degree. There wasn't very much for me to find. So my senior year, I started the company not knowing really, I just knew I needed a job and a way to make money. I had to work 3 other jobs while starting this business, and I funded the entire company with tips from bartending and serving. And I took all that money and invested it in the company and, worked out of my house for years to get to that point. So there are sacrifices that you have to make along the way. Those are things that I didn't consider. Startup costs, investing, marketing, branding, all of these things that I'm telling you, I made the same mistakes. I wasn't even thinking that way. And now I look at these businesses who are owned by very successful people, and they aren't thinking that way either, which is why my advice to you was like, research before you get started, because we're all making the same mistake, and it seems so obvious, but apparently we're all missing it. So I think having the research and the strategy and the expenses and figuring out that all before you even get started is really helpful in the execution process. You're not having to go back and refigure it out. You already have it kind of laid out. And there will be tweaks that have to be made along the way, but you just make them as you go.
And preparation helps alleviate a lot of the fear. Jumping blindly. Yeah. Now, before we close, there were a few comments here that I'd like to share with you on social media. Well, one of them is perfect right now. It says, LOL, life happens, loving the presentation with your lovely dog here. Love Canva. And then our UIW Alumni Association Board President said, thank you, Kim, great information. Love the presentation. I'm always asked about this information from graduates that want to open their own companies. I would recommend they hire you. So all good things. And we appreciate all of the knowledge that you have given us this evening. And for those of you who are going to remain on our social media sites, on our website, on our Facebook page and on YouTube. So thank you again, Kim, for sharing your expertise with all of us here.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope everybody learned something. And even if you're not in the restaurant industry and you have a question, I want to help entrepreneurs. I understand how hard it is in the beginning. So if you want to ask a quick question, shoot me a DM on Instagram and I'll do my best to help you as much as I possibly can.
Thank you all for watching us as well. And we hope you tune in to our next Red Talk. Stay posted.